Let's talk about the seven kings in Revelation, because it's not just some random famous men that people are supposed to guess one by one. That reading shrinks the text fast, and it turns Revelation into a trivia game, and it turns prophecy into a lineup of politicians. And what happens is every generation ends up forcing new names into the slots, and then they watch the whole thing just fall apart. So that reading's too small. The stronger reading is that the seven kings are seven counted resume phases of anti-covenant government. So it's seven counted forms of rule. You have seven successive dominion expressions, seven stages in the mutation of counterfeit government. So that matters because Revelation isn't mainly obsessed with personalities. It's exposing a system that develops, hardens, mutates, and finally concentrates into its last visible form. So when the text speaks of kings, the deeper point isn't just individual rulers, it's ruling orders, resume thrones, and covenant opposing forms of government. That's the basic issue. If the book is exposing beast government as a long maturing counterfeit order, then the kings make more sense as counted resume phases. The text is showing that anti-covenant government didn't suddenly appear at the end. It had earlier forms. It had prior stages. It had a ladder. That's what the phrase means. Counted means the sequence is bounded. It's not vague, and it's not endless. Resume means it's talking about forms of rule, not just one personality. Phases means the order develops over time instead of appearing fully formed at once. And anti-covenant government means each phase opposes Yahuwah's order in a different way while still belonging to the same counterfeit system. So the seven kings are the throne view of the same system that the seven phases describe from the development view. The phases explain how the counterfeit matures. The kings explain how that maturity rules. That's why the line is strong. Now, let's break open the phases one by one. Phase one is Babylon. This is the first concentrated counterfeit of sacred order. False unity, false ascent, false center, humanity organizing itself into one name and one structure apart from covenant. This is anti-covenant government in seed form, not yet fully imperial in the later Daniel sense, but already centralized and rebellious. Phase two is the beast empire. So now the counterfeit grows teeth. It's no longer just false sacred aspiration. It becomes conquest, devouring, annexation, domination, and imperial force. This is where Daniel's beast logic becomes overt. Government becomes openly predatory. Phase three is the priest-king fusion. This is where power gains a sacred shell. Rule is now justified, blessed, and protected by corrupted religious legitimacy. Holy language starts serving anti-covenant power. Raw empire can dominate, but priest-king fusion stabilizes it. Phase four is merchant Babylon. Now the system shifts from conquest alone to civilizational appetite. Trade, luxury, extraction, mammon, and city-based commercial religion become dominant. That's why Babylon in Revelation can't be reduced to one ancient memory. It's the enduring city pattern of the counterfeit order. Phase five is the national bureaucratic state. So now the system becomes repeatable and durable. Ministries, departments, records, standardization, and machine-like administration, and then population management. This is anti-covenant order hardened into procedure. Phase 6 is financial technocratic consolidation. Now it rules through debt, liquidity, reserves, expert management, regulatory continuity, emergency powers, and institutional systems. This is why the modern chart gets so sharp here, because the system no longer needs the open empire in the old form. It can govern through dependency. Phase 7 is open beast enforcement. This is the final visible form: explicit allegiance, direct compliance pressure, buy-sell exclusion, final anti-release sovereignty, and the counterfeit stops hiding behind normality and starts demanding open submission. That's the sequence. So when I say the 7 kings are 7 counted regime phases, I'm saying Revelation 17 isn't just counting men, it's counting the ruling ladder of the counterfeit order. And that's also why the word kings works. In apocalyptic and biblical domination, a king can, or domination language, a king can stand for more than one man. A king can represent a throne, a dominion expression, a ruling house, or an order of power. So the 7 kings are 7 throne forms of anti-covenant government. That's why Daniel 2, Daniel 7, Revelation 13, and Revelation 17 have to be read together. Daniel 2 gives the succession of regime power. Daniel 7 gives the beast taxonomy. Revelation 13 gives the final beast concentration. Revelation 17 gives retrospective throne continuity. So the 7 kings are not detached from Daniel. They are Daniel's succession logic viewed from Revelation's final throne angle. Now, the last part's critical. They culminate in the final beast form just before Jubilee release breaks the system. That means the sequence isn't endless. The system matures through these phases until it reaches its final visible concentration. And that final concentration is beast rule in open form. But it reaches that form right before release. This is why the sequence matters so much, because the beast doesn't win forever. The 7 kings don't end in permanent domination. The counted ladder reaches its last form, and then the Jubilee breaks it. And that's the whole anti-covenant government issue. A true covenant system must end in release. Debt collapses, inheritance returns, captivity ends, and boundaries are restored. Presence is restored. And the beast system exists to stop that. So the final king form, the final regime phase, is not just evil in a generic sense. It's anti-Jubilee, anti-release, and anti-restoration. That's why the last beast form rises with such force. It's the system's final attempt to hold what can't be held. It centralizes harder, enforces harder, demands more openly, and tries to block the rightful release. Then the Jubilee breaks it. So, put simply, the 7 kings are 7 successive ruling forms of counterfeit dominion. They are counted because the sequence is bounded. They're regime phases because the text is exposing structures of rule, not just personalities. They culminate in the final beast form because the counterfeit matures historically and spiritually into open anti-covenant enforcement. And that final form is shattered because the covenant ends in release, not in endless beast rule. And this is exactly why most people can't read Revelation correctly. They keep trying to decode personalities while missing the architecture underneath the whole book. And that's why I built the full 7-layer covenant architecture course. Because if you don't understand the structure, you'll keep shrinking the text, forcing guesses into it, and missing what Revelation is actually exposing. The full presentation goes much deeper. This is just a small bite-sized piece of what's to come whenever I fully go over Revelation. But the course itself is where I break down the layers underneath it all, so you can actually understand how the system works from Genesis to Revelation. So if you want the full teaching, it'll be available on my YouTube here. I'm going to probably do it in the next week or two, and you'll be able to watch it there. But if you want the structure underneath it, get inside the course.
If you're ready to go deeper, join the Covenant Architecture course at school.com/undeniable truths.